Pixel.
Hello, my name is GP, and today I want to talk about why I feel that Bungie hates the working man gamer. GP, I hear you say. What do you mean by that? I mean that, if you are a Destiny player who doesn't have more than a couple of hours a week to play, then Bungie has designed this game to lock you out of almost all of the endgame content. Before I go any further, I know a lot of what I'm going to say is going to spark a lot of hate and comments towards me. This is inevitable. All I ask is that you hear me out all the way through before you comment. If you don't like what I am saying and don't want to listen further, leave a dislike and click off the video. If you do have something you want to say, I simply ask that you hear me out to the end, and then I shall show you the same courtesy with your comment. Now, let me start with the inherent problem here. Endgame content is the content that everyone works towards, and is by default the hardest content to complete. Vault of Glass, Crota's End, Nightfall Strikes, Iron Banner, Trials of Osiris, Prison of Elders, all of these are endgame content. To reap their rewards, you must be skilled and determined, as they are a challenge to complete, and they rightly should be. Them being difficult isn't my complaint. My complaint is the limiting boundary placed on the majority of the endgame content. I will start with my main complaint, but before I do, let me set the stage. Imagine you love Destiny. You play it as often as you can, and you struggle just like everyone else to get all the best gear you can manage. Now imagine you work 9 to 5. That limits your playtime by quite a lot, but you still have many hours in the evening to spend on Destiny. Now add a husband or a wife, who deserves to have time spent with them. A dinner, maybe a TV show or a movie. That limits your time even more. Still, that should give you a couple of hours to play. Now add a kid, or even two. They deserve to have time spent on them as well, and to be fed, played with, and put to bed. After all is said and done, it's now 11 PM. To get a full 8 hours of sleep, you need to be asleep by 12. Maybe you'll only sleep for 6 hours tonight, so you can head off around 1 to 1:30 so you can play the game. This person, who, I imagine, represents a pretty sizable amount of gamers, isn't going to play raids. They aren't going to complete the Nightfall Strikes. They aren't going to play Trials of Osiris. They aren't going to play anything past level 28 Prison of Elders. They aren't going to experience a large portion of the endgame content. Not because they don't want to, but because they simply can't. A person who lives a working man's life isn't likely going to be able to rally a group of players to play this endgame content with. Those who have the time to play Destiny a lot likely already completed the endgame content while you were at work or spending time with the family. Then you finally have some free time Wednesday night at 11:30 PM, and your Destiny pals already did the Nightfall and raids the night before, and don't want to run through them again for no rewards. Okay, so that was one example. Now imagine something else. You were a long-time PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360 gamer. But when the new generation of consoles came out, you decided to wait. Decided to stay with the last gen for a while. Pick up the game on that. All of your friends bought the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4 and decided to buy Destiny on those. Now you play Destiny alone, because you don't have anyone to play with. Pretty hard to do endgame content then. Or maybe it was the reverse, where you moved to the next generation, but a majority of your friends stayed behind. It's still the same problem. Now before you scream, "Well, make new friends, you idiot," at your monitor quite like that of which you are accusing me to be, let me get one more example out of the way. Imagine, if you will, that you are me, a mainly single-player gamer, who enjoys socializing but does that mostly outside of gaming. Someone who, because of work, doesn't have a crazy amount of time to play video games. And when is done with work, just wants to sit down, relax, throw on a podcast or a let's play, and unwind by shooting some minions of the darkness in their abyss-like faces for an hour or two. When I get home, I don't want to spend 30 plus minutes having to message 100 people, hoping that someone will be free and have not already completed the endgame content. Then orchestrate a group, only to have one of the players have to leave mid-game because their parents are turning off their internet, then have to give up because I can't get a new person to play within the time that I have available. This isn't what I consider to be a good time. Now back to the make new friends argument. This is a valid point. My counterpoint is that making friends for the purpose of completing endgame content isn't the greatest basis for a friendship. But not only that, The only way to do so is to stand in the tower, spamming every person you see, hoping that one will respond, or by searching through forum posts, trying to find people who are also searching for groups. The problem here is that I don't have a lot of time to play, and searching online or spamming in the tower isn't playing the game at all. I want to play the game, not yell into an abyss hoping a voice responds. Now another argument that one might pose is, this is how endgame content works. This is the way of MMOs. You don't see people crying around World of Warcraft because they can't complete a raid because they don't have a group. Again, this is a pretty valid point, but I have two counterpoints. One is that Bungie insists that Destiny is not an MMO, even though it kind of is. But more importantly, just because something is that way for everyone else doesn't mean that you can't do something different, or that it is inherently the right way to do something. All I'm trying to get at is while a good portion of the active community can spend hours and hours a day in Destiny, and are able to play with their groups and complete endgame content all day long, there is still a large part of the community who is like me, who don't get all of the exotics and play through the raids and do all the coolest shit there is to do in Destiny, because all of it requires several other active players to play with. According to a Redditor, as of roughly March 2015, using only PS4 trophies as the basis for his or her findings, only 31% of Destiny PS4 players have equipped a piece of exotic gear, and only 19% have completed a raid. That is less than a quarter of the Destiny player base on PS4. This is far too little, in my opinion, especially considering that the endgame content is arguably the best content Destiny has to offer. So my main complaint is that all of this content requires 2 to 5 more players to even play, all of which you have to find on your own. What I hope for Bungie is to allow solo players to be able to enjoy this content and have the ability to complete endgame content and get all the endgame rewards and gear. I'm not saying that I should be able to solo Vault of Glass or Crota's End, or anything of that nature, but only that Bungie accommodates for their player base. Have the option, and I emphasize option, to matchmake for raids, to matchmake for Nightfalls, to matchmake for anything beyond level 28 Prison of Elders. Allow your player base to be able to play the content you've worked so hard to create. Bungie insists the reason they don't add these things is because they want people to create groups of people they trust and form friendships around completing this endgame content. Bungie. I know I'm not even remotely alone when I say this, but I have only ever completed a raid 2, maybe 3 times. And the only way that I could do that, every single time, was by spamming in the tower, finding a group, doing the raid, and then no one in that group ever talking to each other again. Do you know what I like to call that? Matchmaking. Except instead of it being simple and easy, it took nearly an hour of spamming players, and at the end of the day, made me hate the process so much that I stopped even attempting to do the raids. But you'll get matched with shitty players who will stop you from completing the content. Keep players matched at roughly the same level and enable a vote to kick option into the game. If more than 50% of the group agrees that someone should be removed, then they should get kicked. But then you'll be down a player, thus putting you at an extreme disadvantage. Allow for when a player starts matchmaking that they can specify if they want to start from the beginning of a raid or strike, or that they are okay with joining into someone's session mid-progress. I know a system like this isn't flawless, and I'm sure that's why Bungie doesn't want to add one in, but there are ways of making this work in a fun and functional way. Bungie are definitely smart and capable enough of making this happen. Bungie, I really enjoy Destiny, and I would love to be able to enjoy your endgame content. Please don't limit your fanbase's enjoyment of your game to the most hardcore of hardcore players. Embrace those who don't have time to be the most hardcore of hardcore, because frankly, they make up a good portion of your player base. My name is JP, and thank you guys so much for watching.